First of all, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you are on the globe. Thank you for joining today's webinar on accelerating business agility through lean portfolio management. My name is Cidoni Brind. I'm the Director of Agile and DevOps at Trundl, and I have my webinar partner here, Odile.
Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Odile. I'm from Scaled Agile. I'm a strategic advisor and SPCT, and I'm based in Paris. So for me, it's good afternoon. I'm really looking forward to that webinar. I think we've got some nice stuff to show them.
Awesome. Thank you, Odile. Just a quick few words about Trundle. We are not just a technology enabler, but we really help organizations solve problems related to people, process, and tools to enable a good, cohesive work environment and really address technology problems and challenges as well. That's really the purpose of what Trundle does. We do that through three primary areas: collaboration ops and cloud ops and SaaS ops. In this particular webinar, we'll be focusing more on the collab ops side of things, where how we help organizations work better together. We just don't do this all by ourselves. We have our awesome partners that we work with, Scaled Agile, Atlassian, Monday.com, and AWS, Google, and Microsoft as well. So with that, we will jump to the main agenda. Over to you, Odile.
Right, thank you very much. So today what I want to get started, because I know that you want to see the demo, is just to walk through a few things about lean portfolio management. So we're going to start with the why, then I'm going to talk about the SAFe principles that are very important. We'll talk about also the benefit of having an organization around value, and then how to make the shift from traditional portfolio management to lean portfolio management. And then I will get it back to you, Cidoni, to do the demo, because this is really something that they are looking forward to. So without further ado, if we look at the reason of why we want to be talking about LPM, is that once your organization is on its way to become more lean and agile, you will have teams that start to deploy and deliver value on a regular cadence. If you've got teams of teams working together, what we call agile release trains, you will see that they will get into a rhythm, very being predictable, but also being able to shift to any kind of changes. And if you keep on doing portfolio management in the same traditional way, big discussion up front, very really rigid processes to reprioritize, to rebudget, then there's going to be a conflict. And this is very important that you don't impede the value delivery at team and train level, but you also elevate that at portfolio level. So this is going to be a challenge. So what we see when we want to move towards a lean portfolio management, what we like to show is that why is it so important is that it's part of the ecosystem. So here in the new SAFe big picture, you can see on the top that you've got your portfolio with all the themes that will lead to what you're going to do, decision making about your portfolio strategy, the backlog, and delivering value in the form of initiatives that we call epics. And then you know that this is not just something that you do randomly. It will have a link with the execution through the teams, through the agile release train, and you've got feedback loops. So it's very important to see it as a holistic approach. Once you've got teams and trains, it's very important to move on to the portfolio so that you can really align the execution with the strategy. So that said, in order to do that, your lean portfolio leadership will have to develop what we call the LPM competence, the core competence of lean portfolio management. And the people doing and taking initiatives and making the decision at portfolio level will need to have three main key areas in portfolio. The first one is the strategy and investment funding. We're going to spend most of the time talking about that. But then Cidoni will also explain to you how to do agile portfolio operations. So the daily things, how do you check your Kanban boards? How do you ensure that you've got your cadence and your events around a portfolio? And then the lean governance, because it's also very important that you don't do things like willy-nilly and that it's not conveying very well and aligning with your governance. So these are the three main things that you're going to have to put into place. So when we look at safe portfolio, I think it's nice to talk about the definition of a portfolio. For us, a definition of a portfolio is a collection of development value streams. Your development value streams are basically your agile release trains that work on delivering your solutions and the evolution of your solutions. And this is going to be very important. That you're delivering to internal or external customer, it doesn't really matter for us. And depending on the size of your organization, you might have just one portfolio to govern, but in very large organization, you might have several. I'm currently working with a big automotive industry company in France, because as you can hear from the accent, and they've got 8 big portfolios. I used to work also in a telco organization, and they had 15 different portfolios. So having that mastery over the decision making and how you're going to govern is going to help you speed up the process. So when we look at the portfolio, where do you get started? We like to remind people of the SAFe principles that can be also applicable to portfolio level. And basically in SAFe, we've got 10 lean agile principles. Don't worry, we're not going to go through all of the 10s. I just want to take a little bit of time to explain 4 that are very important at portfolio level. They are all important, but those ones, they really make a big difference. The first one is take an economic view. So as a portfolio leader, you will need to make decisions very often based on what's happening in your industry. So if you've got a very dynamic industry, you might want to revisit, for instance, how your budget is being allocated to the different solutions and the different teams working towards the solution. You will also need to make a maybe prioritization decision. And depending on how many new initiatives you're going to bring on, you will probably need to reprioritize. So by having those mechanics, it will allow you to make those decisions quicker. It will also allow you to really be very responsive to what's happening on the field. The second one is base milestones on objective evaluation of working systems. So this one is particularly key for me because I used to be a project manager in my past life. And basically you would do a lot of decision making based on stage gates. So depending on your project, you would probably have, like a research gate, and then you would be going through the next phase, which would be like designing the solution, and then there would be a no-go decision, and then you would be chasing after those things. But what you have to see is that when you are doing this, you are not necessarily producing true value because it's just paper. In SAFe, what we do is we like to have gates. We don't mind gates, but they need to be based on the true work and the value. So basically, when as a leadership team, you go to, for instance, every 2 weeks to the demo, the PI system demo, you can see the results of the teams. You can see, for instance, integrated solution. You can have also feedback loops. You can show things to your customers, and you can also learn on how to get better through feedback. So this is going to be very important. This is going to be a very important measure of the progress that you are making towards realizing your hypothesis statement. So this is going to be very important. Another one is obviously you want to make the value flow without interruption. That applies at team level, at train level, but also at portfolio level. So by not having too many initiatives at the same time, making sure that you've got all the stakeholders into one room to make a decision, to make sure also that you don't work on the whole initiatives in one go, that you start building a minimal viable product where you can test your hypothesis is going to be very, very key. So this is really the strength of version 6 of SAFe, because it's all flow based. And that's also the reason why it's called lean portfolio, because we really want to make sure that you are able to let the value flow without interruption as much as possible. And the last one that I wanted to talk to you about is decentralized decision making. So I'm not saying that you need to decentralize every single decision on portfolio. There are big decisions that are strategic about your, for instance, your strategic themes, your OKRs that you might want to centralize. But what is important is that you work with clear guardrails that allow the different portfolio managers, stakeholders, to make those decisions as they see the information progressing, and also making sure that everybody is communicating with each other so that they are aligned on the clarity of what are the objectives and how we're going to get there. So these are 4 of the 10 principles that are going to really allow you to be very efficient as well in your decision making in your portfolio. But let's have a look again at the benefits of organizing around value, because I feel this is something that a lot of people struggle, because it's not easy to connect the silos together. As you know, in an organization, you've got a dual operating system, you've got the network value stream based, and then you've got your typical hierarchy. We're not saying destroy the hierarchy, become a startup again, and then go forth. What we are saying is try to connect the silos and all the key stakeholders into a value stream network. This is going to be very important at team level, at art level, but also at the portfolio level. And because we told you that a portfolio is a collection of development value streams, what we want is to have the people together that are able to deliver the value from the moment that someone wants something to the moment that it's being delivered. And we don't want them to reshuffle every time that there is new work. We want basically the work that comes to them and then they stay together. And it's exactly the same thing at portfolio level. We want the team to stay very cohesive at the portfolio level so that those decision making can flow easier. So by having this value-driven approach, basically you allow the teams to work closely together on a longer term. You will be quicker to make the decision because everybody is there. And then obviously you will have a better quality and more productivity. And then you really need to make sure that all your budget mechanism around this are made as lean as possible to really coexist with this value stream network. So let me finish by telling you a little bit of what needs to change. There are 5 big changes that you need to do to be able to embrace lean portfolio management. And I'm going to go through all of those one by one, so don't worry. The first one, like I mentioned, is organize your people around value. So make sure that you've got your agile release trains with your teams that are able to deliver from end to end the value that is needed. This is going to be very important that they work together in cadence, that they really learn to get better together, and that the work comes to their places. This is going to make it very predictable for you, and it will also help you with forecasting of the work that is going to be coming. So that's the first one. The second one is we want to move from project cost accounting to more lean budget and guardrails. So when I used to be a project manager, I used to chase a lot of people, different cost centers to make sure that they were there for my projects. And I would take a couple of weeks just on paper to make sure that I had the funding, that I had the people, and then the work would be done. And then obviously it's based on forecasting, it would go wrong. And then at some point I would have to renegotiate to lengthen the people on the team because I didn't want them to move away before the work was finished. So it takes a lot of waste, and the cost of delay of delivering the value is very high. What we want is, once you've got your teams together, you know how many people, you know their capacity, and then what you can do is focus on having the right amount of people doing the work. So by having a funding of the development value stream, you can become very, very predictable. And it will also allow you to be a little bit more mindful of the capacity that those people will have. So I will come back to that later on, but this is very, very important. The cost of delay will be reduced because you really, truly now focus on delivering the value instead of doing a lot of accounting and cost analysis and everything. The third one is about annual planning versus rolling wave budgeting. So I know that a lot of companies have very strict annual planning where the budget is discussed and then it's fixed and then we cannot move. And imagine something happened 3 months along the way, a big opportunity, but all the money is stuck. So what you want is to have a more rolling wave planning and budgeting approach. So it's good that you've got cadences that we call PI, where you're going to plan and then you're going to ensure that you execute to the value. But what you want is also having a monthly cadence of reviewing what's going on so that you can learn how to pivot. Do you need to stop an initiative because no value has been there and it would be better to reallocate the budget to something else? So this is going to be very important to be that flexible because we don't know what's going to happen in 3 months' time. We can't look into the future, I would say, fortunately, but this is going to be very important. Another one is, like I mentioned, really about overloading people because we want to do a lot of initiative, we want to produce a lot of value, and having more matching demand to capacity. So because your agile release trains are fixed in capacity, then you can work out how many capacity and where should they be working. So having a backlog of work, having capacity allocation is going to be much more satisfying for you and the people because you know that you can't overburden people. And if the team are releasing value quicker, then they can select what's next in the backlog. You don't have to retell them. You don't have to redo the work because everything is very visible, like Cidoni will show you. So I think this is very important. The other one I was telling you about was the phase gate. So phase gates on paper, it doesn't really bring any value. It's based on hypotheses and false positive feasibility. What we want is incremental development. So every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, depending on your cadence, the teams will show you where they are, what they've learned, so that you can take the decision of pursuing the work or stopping the work or moving to something else. So this is going to be very important as well at portfolio level because you will learn as well on how to get better based on the feedback loops that you're going to put into place. So this is going to be also very key for you to start improving your decision making. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk to you was a lot of detailed business cases versus what we call a lean business cases. So when I was a project manager, I used to make a lot of project identification document, spending a lot of time doing Gantt charts, a lot of calculation. And to be honest, we've got an expression in France. It's called the wet finger. You go with the wind, and this is not really getting you anywhere because it's made on a lot of assumption. We don't say that you don't need to make an analysis, but what we want is to make a more lean business case usage. Basically, you've got a big idea, you've got estimates, you can use story points of t-shirt size for that, and then you're going to focus on what's the minimum viable product that I'm going to start to prove the hypothesis of my big initiative, my big epics. So if I want to be doing an online e-commerce platform, am I going to build the whole stuff, or am I going to focus on one thing to showcase that there is value to be having? And this is going to be very important to demonstrate again as quickly as possible if you want to pursue or if you want to finish with the value that you're going to be delivering. So I think this is going to be extremely difficult. It's easier for me to say than for you to do, but these are the 5 key big changes that you should be considering when you start moving towards a lean portfolio management. So that's it about the theory. I'm going to give back the mic to Cidoni, and I hope that I can give you back the access to, yes, to the slide.
Thank you, Odile.
You're welcome.
Share my screen here. Okay. So what we're going to do next is, we'll take a look at how we can visualize some of these things, right? I'm not going to have time to show all of it from the depth and breadth of what's possible. But what we really want to try and showcase here is some key points that Odile has been talking about in terms of your organization having some strategic themes that helps your teams rally around the North Stars that you're shooting after, right? So we'll be able to visualize those things. And then some other key concepts that we covered, I'm going to show you some of those things on how you can visualize that in a tool like Jira. So in this particular webinar, we are using Jira, and Structured PPM is an add-on that sits on top of Jira. Jira is a pretty popular tool. A lot of companies use it. One of the things that we have noticed is a lot of organizations do not take the full advantage of the tool with even the basic capability that comes out of the box, plus maybe 1 or 2 add-ons. You can actually get a lot of the capabilities that we just heard about from a lean portfolio management standpoint, right? It can be expanded further. There are other tools that are much more sophisticated also available. If anybody's interested, that could be a separate demo, but we are going to focus on Jira and see how you can use Jira to get some of these capabilities established in your organization. Right? We're going to take a sample enterprise that we'll pretend it's a retail enterprise, replace retail with any of your organizations, any size. We're going to be focusing on certain key business competencies that the organization is interested in, and investing in technology capabilities to advance that, right? Customer centricity, innovation, security, operational efficiency, sustainability. These are fairly common across most organizations. Apply your own domain and areas of focus in here. You can configure the system to actually work for it. So with that, we will jump right into the demo. So I'm gonna minimize this. So this is standard Jira. So if you are familiar with Jira as a tool, this is very simple to set up. This is just a project where you can actually host all of your strategic teams, right? One of the things that I've noticed from my own experience in the past, working with several companies and organizations in the past, various capacities, is that we all talk about a lot of the core themes or OKRs across the organizations, and you cannot find that anywhere, right? You'll hear that in town halls. You'll probably get an email about it, and somebody says it's in a SharePoint or a Confluence or somewhere else, but it's not connected to your work. So the core aspect of what we are trying to showcase here is how do you bring all of them together in a more connected experience, right? So that you can actually see it. And if somebody is working on something, how can you trace it back to why you are doing what you are doing, right? And that's the key to really break the silos too, that Odile talked about. If you really want to shift your budgeting models, if you want to get the teams work together, um, you have to look at minimizing and potentially eliminating dependencies. You have to have people, you have all teams work together much more cohesively. But if you cannot get them to align to the same goal, they're all going to work differently and they're not going to be aligned, right? So establishing a strategy, whether it's you're using a theme or OKR, is equally important to connecting it to the execution part of it, right? So that's what we're going to see here. Let me just switch it over here. So first thing what we'll look at is, Odile talked about portfolios, right? You could have one portfolio, multiple portfolios in your organization. They may have their own themes. So you could capture that here. If you have multiple portfolios, you can replicate it with an attribute about the portfolio itself, so you can even delineate that. Jira gives you some basic reports out of the box. A lot of you might be already familiar with this, but the idea is if you have themes being captured, you can still take advantage of the same thing. You can look at the recent activity. You can look at, how much is progressing, what status that's in, who's really owning some of these things. You can put the accountability on these themes with your leaders and then track that. From the themes, we all know that at the portfolio layer, you would have portfolio epics, right? You would have your big initiatives, but a portfolio, not to forget, is a collection of value streams, right? So if you identified your value streams, again, there are exercises to do that. I think Scaled Agile Framework.com is a great resource to learn about those things more. Once you have the value stream identified or value streams identified, the group collection of those development value streams form your portfolio. So those value streams are actually working towards these themes. How do you see that, right? So that's where I, introduce you to the tool called Jira Structure PPM add-on. This one lets you configure your views, and customize it in the way you want. So in this few examples you're going to see, I have customized it to actually showcase this particular model, right? This particular enterprise organization where you have themes and you have value streams, and these value streams have portfolio epics under them, right? So if you can now in here, you can actually see that, let me just go back here for a second. Under customer-centric growth, there are the support and returns, e-commerce platform development, loyalty being the main value streams for the organization as under the contributing towards customer-centric growth. Within that, you can actually now have your own initiatives or portfolio epics that are executed within those value streams, and you can that these are contributing specifically to the said themes, right? So what that really gives you is a way to organize these initiatives and then our portfolio epics under these value streams and be able to look at the list and start prioritizing. Like this, as you can see here, I have tags with some of the PIs. So when you go into the planning and the prioritization part of it, like we heard, if you're using the weighted shortest job first or best diff as it's called, you can use a tool like this to configure. Again, these are highly configurable, right? So you can configure these things to look at, okay, how are my portfolio epics stacked within the PI? Are my teams focused on the top priority item, right? One of the interesting thing about this tool is also that this is not just a visualization tool, just as a reporting tool, but you can actually make changes here. So imagine the portfolio sync meeting that Odile talked about, that where you have to constantly, every month you want to sync and reevaluate your priorities. You can actually pull this up in a meeting, in an offline session, and then have people rate these things, right? And then you can say, let's say, for example, in this case, the digital marketing strategy for personalized content had a time criticality of 1, and the ratings for these are using Fibonacci series, right? So if we think that it has become very urgent now, you could actually just make that change right here. So I'm going to increase the score, and once I change the score for time criticality, you will see that the priority will change for this item, and it has actually jumped up. Right? So I changed the business value. Let's change this one. So I'm going to actually make it time critical and high business value. So I changed both of them. So it's jumping up and increasing in priority. So you can see it right there, right? And this can actually help the teams to align what decisions and prioritization they're doing to identify the work that needs to go into the PI and which ones they would favor or over the other, right? Now let's put it all together, right? So at this point, we have talked about themes, value streams, and your portfolio epics, right? From the portfolio epics, you would have your features identified, you would have your stories or your tasks broken down below that, right? So if you want to see the whole thing, this can actually provide you the whole holistic view as well. So we start from the organization again. Okay, let's go through one of the themes. I'm going to look at one of the value streams. It's got just one initiative at the moment. It's planned for PI 1 and 2. I can see there are a bunch of features that are being developed. You can actually open that and find out what specific work is actually happening within each PI, right? Obviously, once it goes into different teams, you may have teams that are Kanban, Scrum, maybe a hybrid waterfall mixed team, be it any model that you're following, as long as they are working within the cadence, they have identified, okay, it is going to get done within this PI's duration. You will see that here. You could additionally bring in your sprint and other information as well. So if you want to really see the sprint where those works belong, you can just add the sprint column here to see which sprint this work is being planned within this PI. Right? Again, like I said earlier, even when we are looking at the prioritization, I changed the values for the time criticality and business value. You could do the same here on almost all of the fields, Jira fields that you would have. Okay. You might notice that there are a couple of other things going on. There is a progress percentage. I know that however uh, loud and long you talk about Agile, right? There's always going to be questions from somebody saying, hey, can you give us the progress percentage? How far are you in, right? Obviously that from the concept and philosophy standpoint, I know that's a debatable topic. However, imagine the possibility of being able to answer that question quickly enough where whether you agree with the approach or not, you are able to move past that point, right? So, if you are able to actually provide that, you can calculate these progress percentages automatically. And this is highly configurable as well, right? In this particular example, I have not really configured the progress percentage for the in progress status. As an organization, as a portfolio, if you agree on a specific progress for um, a particular item, you can actually then start capturing the progress there. You would also see that there are some open risks alerts happening here, right? So hopefully you're familiar with the Rome risk management framework that Scaled Agile provides. So, resolved, owned, accepted, or mitigated. You can configure the same thing. The approach that I've seen work quite well is letting teams actually capture the risk and connect it to the thing that actually it affects, right? So the risk becomes a lot more contextual. So from that point of view, you can start capturing risks along with these tickets and say, okay, I have a story which is trying to rely on an LLM to bring in some AI capabilities. We are potentially anticipating higher usage and might incur higher costs. That's a potential risk for on your budget. So you may want to capture that. You want to leave it as open. You can update the statuses here. I can say, okay, it is owned. And then once it is accepted or mitigated, it would actually disappear. So um, the good thing about this is, if you are a portfolio manager or a project manager, if you're somebody at any level in this hierarchy, let's collapse all of these things and see how it looks like, right? So on the top level, when you look at the portfolio, you know that there are some open risks. You can open one by one and then start tracing where these risks are. So I can see that there are two risks here. And open that. I can really follow the trail to find out where exactly that risk is. And then you could also have other views that just can be used as a risk register if you want just to pull all the risks and then manage that. Very handy during your PI planning, like big room planning sessions, right? So let's assume for a second that somebody actually had identified a risk. Okay, it's owned by someone, and then we got a way to resolve it. So we mark it as resolved, and then you can see that this would just disappear, right? It's no longer a risk. So you can see that this value stream does not have an active risk anymore, right? So it'll actually help you manage this. Again, these are configurable. I want to keep repeating this: customizable and configurable, right? This is just one of the ways to do this. There are several different ways you can configure this tweaked to your use case, okay? All right, so let me just jump into another perspective. So once we have all of these things going on, you would want to see how the teams are doing within each PI. So I'm going to go look at each team within the PI. Okay, I want to see how my mobile dev team is doing. You can see the number of sprints they have. So there's a closed sprint, there's a future sprint that's being planned, there's an active sprint. I can open that, see the progress, who's working on what the status of items are, which sprint they are in, what the story points are, how much is the aggregated story points. So you can get a sense of all of those capacity planning that we talked about. Like, are the teams planning based on story points or whatever unit of measure they're using? You can actually visualize those as well, right? It's all the same data. This is real time, right? It's if somebody makes a change on one of these tickets, just in the standard Jira issue view, something like this that you might be familiar with as well, it immediately reflects on the ticket. So let's do that just as an example. I'm going to go to this one, and apparently this has a due date. I'm just going to see if I can update the due date if I have the field here, or I'm just going to change the story points. I know that not something you would do on an active sprint, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to change the story points to 8. The 3 became 8. The totals changed. It updates right away, right? You don't even have to refresh the screen. I don't know if you noticed that. So, so it gives you the visibility that way. Right. So let's continue a few more things. How we're doing on time. Okay. What we'll do next is, we talked about incremental delivery, letting value flow without interruptions, right? To be able to do that, the teams need to be able to see what work is happening from different angles, right? You may have dependencies, you may have risks at the team level, you may have releases, sprints, all of those things that are happening, so it's different perspectives that one is taking on the same set of work items that you have with your team. How do you see all of that together? The same tool can be configured to show all of those things in one single view. So in here, I'm looking at a bunch of releases here, right? So I can see that there's 1.0, Venus 1.0, 1.1 have been released. You can see that's a closed package. There's an open package here. I can open that and see, okay, this release is about 95% done. It's getting ready to go, right? You can also see by each team, you can see all of the sprints. You kind of saw that in the previous view as well. You can also, see the risks that we talked about. This can be used as your risk register. Okay, there's a handful of risks open, right? And it can also find out which are the stories that it's going to affect. So and those are links. You can go see the details with those tickets as well. And you have some dependencies. There are some dependencies, like these are dependencies that we have on the other teams. So I can open that and I see that, okay, there's a view cart capability that I need to build. If you notice that this dependency has, this story has dependency on the mobile team, my own team, that's the Venus team here. You can see by the ID here. And then a product team, a product X team. So if there are dependencies even outside your team, you can visualize that. It's all in the same tool. And obviously, depending on the progress and the other things you have configured, you can see additional information as well. You can also configure the reverse, right? You can actually find out, the items that others are dependent on us, right? So you can open these things. Right now, I don't think we have any from the other team, but you could do the reverse as well. Now, let me give you another example of, we saw that we were able to edit and make changes and update things here. You can actually create tickets here as well. So for example, if the feature brief here requires another item from some other team, you can actually just hit enter right there. You can say, okay, I need, or let's say the product X team actually said they are going to have a dependency on one of their items. I'm just going to choose the product X project here. They have a story and they're saying, okay, on the feature brief item that my team is doing, that's a dependency for one of the items. Okay, so I'm going to say this just to make it clear. So this is a story that depends on feature brief 2. And I can create it in line. Okay. So the ticket is created, the ID is there. Now you can also set up the sprints. Now I can see, for example, this is getting done on sprint 3. So in here, I can say that, okay, I will also try to start working on this on my PX sprint 3, right? So you can actually do dependency management right there, okay? Quick and easy. This can be done offline on your PI planning meetings, your sprint planning meetings. Even during refinements and other ceremonies, you could use these views, again, customized to your purpose. Okay. All right. With that, so I'm going to take next maybe few minutes here just to showcase, one of the things that when we start doing this work management through a tool like this is obviously reports, right? Everybody wants to see or find, beautiful graphs and charts. It could give you valuable insights, right? And I'm going to show you a few. Again, this requires another add-on called custom charts. There are some that are available out of the box in Jira that you can probably do right away today. Otherwise, you could actually add add-ons. There are multiple add-ons available in the marketplace. I'm just using one of them as a sample here. So we will just go and see a few charts. So here I want to see how the portfolio epics are progressing by my PI. So I can see that there are very different epics at different stages. I can see that in the current PI, 4 of them are in progress. Some work for this next one is also in progress. Things like that, right? Some of them might be overlapping items too. So you can see that some are going through the analyze. So the flow that you see here is nothing but your funnel, right? Your portfolio Kanban, right? So you can have those initiatives flow through the same set of statuses. Your portfolio epics flow through the same set of statuses that you're familiar with on the Scaled Agile framework. And you can set those statuses up and then pull those reports out. All right, let's go flow distribution. So you would have heard about the measure and grow module in Scaled Agile framework, where it talks about the flow parameters that you should be measuring if you want to really enable uninterrupted flow across your teams, right? So there are a handful of flow related metrics. I'm going to show you maybe a couple here. Flow distribution actually tells you what type of work is happening across different teams, right? So it's about 48% are stories, 43% of tasks going on. If the marketing assets, other things, you can create your own types of deliverables and then start capturing them. Flow load, right? How many things are in progress? How many are in the backlog? How many have been done? This is a flow time distribution, right? So this is a good one to understand where your bottlenecks are, right? So if you look at average time across various statuses across the board, you can actually see that certain bars are pretty wide, right? So you can see that in this case, architecture review is taking about 17% of the overall flow time. You may want to look at what's going on there, right? Maybe the team is short-staffed, right? Or there are interruptions and things are getting in the way and it's really not helping the flow, right? We talked about the risk management, standard risk heat map, right? You can see how many critical risks you have based on your impact and probability, standard risk management techniques, and then see how your risks look like. Now, just to go back here, all of these items that you have here, anything that you see in this dashboard, all these numbers are clickable. And I'm going to show you just one here. I'm going to just go to these low risks here. If I click on that, you'll be able to land on those 4 items, right? And then you can actually look at what those 4 things are and then take appropriate action. So these dashboards are not just reports, but you can double click into the details. See, maybe we'll look at 2 more. PI team-wise distribution. This is a distribution of work. I'm just using the count of issues, but you can use story points or any measure that you want to use. It's just, to give a rough sense of how much work is with each team. In this case, you can see that the information technology team and the Mercury team apparently has the most work on PI1, right? So, again, you may be able to focus on those things. Are they overcommitting? Are there too many dependencies that might affect other teams? There could be a lot of questions you may want to ask from this graph onwards. You can see team-wise progress as well within the portfolio. How many, which all teams have how many things going on? How are they progressing? You could put. I'm just going to skip that one. I'm going to just jump to the last one to leave a few minutes for questions. You can put all of these things into a big dashboard, right? So you can, I just showed you each of these charts individually, but you can actually put all of them into a single dashboard. You can add more charts. You can have a dashboard level filter as well. So I can go in here and say, okay, I just want to see only PI1. The chart will update based on just the PI1 data, right? So it's configurable. There are ways to share. You can have, share through, if any of you are using JSM portal, portal that serves external customers or even internal, groups, you can expose some of these charts to those users as well. But the key point being, the data is already in Jira. It's all connected, just like how we saw in the top level organization view like this. Once these teams start, identifying their features and stories for the initiatives or the portfolio epics, these are all just naturally getting connected, right? All right. Okay, I think we have about 9 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, there were a couple questions. There was a comment earlier from Kelly just saying would love to hear more on how organizations make a shift from project funding and annual budgets to value stream funding. I guess more of an open question. One of the first questions that did come in, official questions, was from AM, how to map LPM execution to Jira Align. Through the chat, we did indicate that this was not a Jira Align solution, maybe something that we would have to cover off out of the webinar, but that question did come through. And any of those 2 points, do you want to speak to any of those or address those?
Yeah,
we also have
would say
official questions in the Q&A, which I want to get to. So
I would say let's give the priority to the tooling questions, and then maybe I can reach out to the other questions, because I'm afraid if I start talking, I will need the 15 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Cool.
right, so I'll start with the Jira Align question, right? Obviously, yes, Jira Align is a solution as well, right? The one of the things that we were trying to showcase is like how to get started quickly, right? Obviously, Jira Align has a little bit of a learning curve. It's a little more sophisticated. It's got a lot of stuff built in. So you'll have to really look at, do you have the volume of resources that, in terms of not just the people, but also the budget to accommodate a tool like that. And then, and all the capabilities, do you really need all of those capabilities, right? Because a lot of organizations are in various stages of their journey. Um, you may want to start small, right? Be agile with that too, right? And then just experiment, see how things start to shape up. The interesting thing is most of these things are follow the same data hierarchy, right? Once you set it up, if you introduce a tool like Jira Align, I would say 60-70% of it is just naturally going to work, right? And then you might have to tweak a little bit more to get the other perspectives in there.
We've got a question from Joe.
So,
I'm trying to get through enough of them here. Does structure include calculated fields?
yes. Yes, in both ways, right? So there are ways to have calculated fields using other add-ons in Jira or as well, like Script Runner and other tools can give you calculated fields as well. But Jira structure also can do calculations, right? So, if you saw the WSDIF calculation that was changing, it's a formula behind the scene. So think of it as a calculated field. You have a way to actually visualize that there. You can customize it as well, right? So you can write really sophisticated formulas that, traverse the tree up and down. The risk emoji that I was showing, that was a formula as well. So that's kind of a calculated field. But yes, possible. I can go through these questions, Patrick. I think
You can see them.
yeah, I can
Marcel's
see
at the
them.
top.
Yeah. So the flow reports are feature level reporting. Right now, the flow report that I've pulled in includes everything, right? It includes portfolio epics, features, stories, everything in it. Obviously, you can filter that, right? If you are really interested in the flow of just the portfolio level epic, you can do that. If you want to just do it at a feature level, yes, you can do that too. Can we have the visibility of alignment of OKR and KPI from strategic things? Absolutely, yeah. The way you set up your hierarchy is completely up to you. That's why I said, I just saw showing a model, right? Not the model, right? So it can be tweaked to how your organization plans the work, right? And then breaks it down from top to bottom. So OKRs, KPIs, yes, depending on what you mean by KPI, right? A lot of times KPIs are measures that are on your system level data, right? So, you may not have that as a work management hierarchy in some cases, but if you are doing that, yes, absolutely, you can do that as well, right? They just like if you're familiar with Jira, you can create any issue type as you want, right? I have seen clinical organizations having issue type as patient, right? It's actually a patient being the issue type. So you can configure that. Whatever you configure, as long as the hierarchy is established, you can visualize that in structure as well. Did I miss the capacity planning aspect of it? I touched on it a little bit. Now, the capacity planning is an interesting topic because it can become a slippery slope when people try to look at hours and days and those kind of estimation. If you're really staying with your story point estimations, structure can give you a high level view. Now, structure does have another extended add-on available called structure Gantt, which can give you the full Gantt chart experience, right? I intentionally did not show it today because I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with it, but it can actually show you timelines. It can show you, how capacity planning can be done. It can show you how many hours or story points, or based on whatever measure you use, how time from an individual level is blocked. Again, if you're trying to be agile and you want to scale that, you probably may not want to go too far down that track, right? If you're engaging teams to be using story points, it's probably better to keep it simple, right? So yeah, it is possible. Again, really depends on the depth in which you need to go.
I think that might be it for the official questions in the queue.
We have a couple more minutes. Any other questions?
Here's another one from Brandon.
Where the flow metrics showed the only metrics you recommend for monitoring portfolio health. That's a good question. Incrementally, yes, right? Again, you want to focus on a handful of things at once, just like how you would, at a team level, you go to a retrospective, right? And then there's millions of ideas flying around. If you try to do all of it at once, it may not work, right? So you may want to pick like maybe 2 or 3. Flow metrics, I think, could actually uncover a lot of insights about your organization once you see the metric and then start asking and having this follow-up conversations. My recommendation would be to pick the areas that you have noticed as is hurting the organization the most, right? For example, if your releases are always getting delayed, right? None of it is happening on time. You may want to look at the flow time metric, right? Are there waiting times or is there a bottleneck in resourcing? Things like that, you might be able to locate that. So it really depends on the symptom you are seeing. Try to find out what the root cause is. With this, depending on the symptoms, you can look at some charts and see, okay, is it helping me get some valuable insights?
Yeah, that's totally how I would say it. The flow metrics allow you to answer some of your most important problems that you can see. So like Cidoni said, is for instance, do you have a problem with your distribution of epics or your budget? And you could use those flow metrics. Do you have time with do you have difficulties with the flow time because it takes a long time, like Cidoni mentioned. We don't recommend that you do the 6 altogether. Try to pinpoint problems that you want to solve. Have a look at the metrics. The metrics will allow you to showcase, and then you can have a look at the flow accelerators on how you want to solve those. So we are actually working on an advanced article right now at Scaled Agile that will allow you to ask you the right questions in your inspect and adapt. So we hope that it's going to be launched within the first quarter of this year. Have a look at that because I think it would also be very important. Right on, Cidoni. I would not have said it better than you.
Exactly. There was one question that Kelly asked earlier: is are you using an issue type for risks? And
Yeah.
I don't know if that was revealed.
Yeah,
earlier.
it is a risk. I just created it as a issue type. But then, you would want to also do a few more things along with it, right? You want to define how you want to link them to your stories or epics. It can be linked to anything, right? As depending on how you open it up. But that establishing that relationship and going through the change management of educating everybody that here's how you do it, so that you can surface it at the right level, right? Risk management, again, in the past, it's another example. You could also establish a level. Is it a team level risk or a program level risk? And then the RTEs can actually look at the program level risk alone, right? So you can filter that out. You don't have to get like all of the risk across, all of the teams necessarily. So, you can configure a lot of things from there, right? But yes, having the issue type as a risk is the starting point of it.
Well, awesome. I'd say everybody who came here, we can make ourselves open to follow up with other demos or things like that in the future, even if you're looking at structure or some of the add-ons that were shown to add to your Jira Cloud instance. There's some buying perks that we can extend to you guys if you want those. So just let us know if you want to explore these topics further. Any other closing remarks from our hosts?
No, thanks, Odile, for the wonderful presentation at the beginning. I think it's been great working together for preparing towards this. It was amazing,
Exactly.
and I hope all our participants gained something that you could go back and make a change today, hopefully. And if you're really interested in doing more, learning more, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.